I'm a modeler by trade. I like taking customer level data and try to predict who's going to do what when, try to come up with some understanding of which message we should send to which customer, which time, through which channel. So a lot of the quantitative stuff that's now becoming popular. And I've been building these models for 25 years as a professor of Wharton. And it's been frustrating to be able to build these models. They work real well. There are some companies, some analysts who will see the value in them. There's a lot of other people who say, oh, it's just that math stuff. And they don't have the full appreciation of what these models can do, or how they can fit into a broader customer-centric strategy. So I felt instead of just pushing the math and pushing the models, I needed to take a step back. I needed to meet the managerial audience halfway, which meant I needed to really understand the strategies that these models would be a part of. So I looked around at the literature on customer centricity and was kind of both amused and frustrated by it. Part of it was a lack of clarity about what people mean by customer centricity. Part of it was some hand-waving vagueness about where models and formal analysis would fit into different people's view of it. So a lot of it was just for me, just to bring clarity to this notion of customer centricity and what the specific tangible steps are that are associated with it. And so in poking around and looking at what the different pundits and experts were saying, I realized there really was a need to sort through a lot of the noise out there, to really clarify what customer centricity is and isn't, and to build a framework about where all these models would then fit in. So I find that one of the best ways to define customer centricity is to focus first on what it isn't. And one area that people often make the mistake is they'll associate customer centricity with customer service. So they'll look at very service-oriented firms. A prototypical example would be Nordstrom's and said, boy, they put the customer front and center, and therefore they're customer-centric. And it's not that simple. To me, customer service is part of customer centricity, but not synonymous with it. So customer centricity is more about picking and choosing the kinds of customers that you want to focus around. So who are the kinds of customers that you really want to build your whole business model around them? So it's kind of us surrounding particular customers and other customers saying, if you want to buy our stuff, that's great, but don't ask for any special treatment.
So building, when you say your whole business around it, would that mean the most profitable customers only, or a certain kind of customers only?
Well, ultimately, it should be the most profitable customers. And let me clarify that too, is another often point of confusion. When I talk about customer profitability, I'm not referring to the money that we've already made from the customers. I'm talking about the money that we could be or should be making, future profitability, or as we like to say, customer lifetime value. So let's not focus ourselves around the customers who have been the best. Let's focus ourselves around the customers who will be the best, and perhaps we can shape them to be that way. So let's figure out who those really, really valuable customers are, the ones who turn out to be just a very good fit for the kinds of products and services that we develop and deliver. And let's figure out what more we can do in order to create and extract that value. And then along the way, if other customers want to buy our goods and services too, that's great. But we're going to treat them very differently.
So you mentioned Nordstrom here, and the book you talked quite a fair bit about many of these companies like Apple, Costco, Starbucks, Walmart. They are not actually customer-centric. And you make a very strong point about it. It kind of really intrigued me, and I'm sure many other readers who find Starbucks and Apple, they are very customer-centric. Why do you kind of believe they're not? And
well, first of all, it's interesting to compare Apple and Starbucks because they couldn't be more different from each other. Because with Starbucks, it would be easy for them to tag every single transaction. If you have some kind of loyalty program, or something they seem to start up and let go of every few months, they should know each of your transactions. They should know as soon as you walk in the store and flash that card or self-identify in some other way, they should anticipate exactly what you want. They should be able to just look you in the eye and say, would you like the usual? But they're nowhere near that. And for years and years, they've claimed they've been moving in that direction. And they really should be there. Apple, in contrast, is a very product-centric company. And I'm not saying that in a disparaging way. Who am I to criticize Apple? They're very product-centric. They're good about building a certain kind of thing.
Yeah.
It works extraordinarily well. Yeah. And customers will come to them and will deal with them on Apple's own terms. Apple is going to do very, very little to bend themselves around particular customers. Now, they do offer fabulous service in their stores, but it's not that they treat certain kinds of customers different than others. So they don't really do a lot of tracking and predicting. Very, very little of that. Maybe just the exception would be a little bit in iTunes, where they'll make recommendations. But for the most part, they treat all customers the same, which is fine, but that's very different than customer-centric. So there's some companies that were born into it. So I think about many .com companies, of course, the best example being Amazon, where they recognize the differences across customers right from the beginning. They celebrate those differences and they know who to go after and who to more or less leave alone. And then there's other companies that have come to it relatively late in the game, companies that were struggling with other kinds of business models and found that really getting that high level of customer insight and understanding customer differences led to all the difference in the world for them. So companies like Tesco, the very successful grocery retailer in the UK, or Harrah's, the casino here in the US, that again, they were more or less boxed into a corner in their respective industries, but then use customer level data to break out of the pack and become best practice in their respective industries. Well, before I even comment on the new Kindle Fire, it's interesting to see what Jeff Bezos said about the original Kindle when it came out. A lot of people were very, very skeptical about what kind of market is there for an ebook reader. And of course, he was right. There is a substantial market. Yeah. And he made it very, very clear. He said, our customer is the serious reader. Someone who's reading frequently, carrying a lot of books around, maybe reading different kinds of books or periodicals at any given time. He said, that is our core customer. We are going to design our products and services around that customer. He or she will see the value we're offering and will share some of the value with us. And if there's other people who want to buy the device for grandma for her birthday or whatever, that's fine too. So in that sense, the fact that he recognized that there are differences among customers and that they're going to align themselves closely with some and others, that's a big difference right there. Now, how well is the Kindle Fire going to take it further in that direction, or is it an attempt to broaden the reach, to go away from serious readers to casual readers and other consumers of content? Remains to be seen. It's too early, but it's an interesting strategic.
So if you had to put your money, where would you put it now?
I do think that it's an attempt to broaden out, that they've kind of in some sense won over the serious reader market, or at least they've created it pretty much out of nothing a few years ago, and now it's time to give other people who should be buying a Kindle but haven't yet had a good enough reason to do so, there's a chance to bring them into it. First of all, while lifetime value is indeed closely associated with the other things you mentioned, acquisition, retention, churn, it's more complex than those, because those things tend to be more immediate kinds of behaviors. How many customers will we acquire? How many of them will stay with us next period? Lifetime value, as its name implies, is going much further out. Can we project their retention and other ongoing behavioral aspects for a long, long period of time? So there's a lot of complexity to it, which is why some firms like telecom and financial services are dipping their toes in the water, but haven't yet fully figured out what this lifetime value thing is, how to measure it, how to utilize it for lifetime customers. So one piece of it is just kind of just in terms of jargon, recognizing that these words are related to each other, but there's different degrees of complexity. And along those lines, some of the companies that have started to push further from just mere retention towards lifetime value have been doing it in rather casual, inaccurate ways. And that's a problem, because if we want to project someone out, not just over the next year, but over the next 20 years or longer, you got to get it right. If you're going to be placing these bets on who's going to be the right customer over the long run, not just tomorrow, you want to make sure you're measuring and projecting these things carefully. for the most part, the way firms have been doing it, if they've been doing it at all, has been more or less a back-of-the-envelope calculation.
Okay.
And it turns out that if you're going to be doing lifetime value, and you agree that you want to be doing it correctly, then there's a little bit more math involved.
Sure.
And I don't view this book as exactly the place to be laying that math out, but I do want to emphasize some of the implications of doing it the right way or the wrong way. Because it's not just a minor technicality. If you do it wrong versus right, there's huge amounts of money that are being left on the table. The first question is whether they should be doing that at all.
Sure.
So for companies that do have the ability to track individuals over time and do have both the desire and ability to then segment them and target them separately, those are the companies that should be doing lifetime value type calculations. But there are many companies that either can't get access to that data or there are regulatory reasons that keep them from doing it. So the first question is it the right thing to be done? For those companies where it is the right thing, where they can get the data, they have the analytical capabilities and the targeting capabilities, it's a matter of first investing in data collection, data management, and just basically customer psychology to understand what is it that people are really doing, instead of using some kind of one-size-fits-all formula because they read that someone in some other industry did something with CLV. Yeah. So a lot of it is just core understanding. And I actually have some concerns in this regard because there's a lot of people who are turning to brute force data mining, which is pretty good at certain kinds of things, making long run projections about a very heterogeneous group of customers. It's not really a good domain for that. So it's a matter of learning an entirely new science, one that's just now emerging and the best practices are just now being written. When I first wrote the book, when I was first developing some of these ideas and developing a course on some of this content, at first I was teaching just towards those firms that already get it, to help them bring clarity to their existing thinking about customer centricity. So firms that have easy access to customer level data and the desired ability to actually leverage it. And then I realized the real market for the book is far broader than that. I mean that in a couple of ways. Number one, there's a lot of companies on the fence, companies that don't yet have those capabilities, but should be making an active decision whether they should be investing in the data collection infrastructure and so on. So it's actually a broader audience of companies that I'd like them to make an active decision of whether customer centricity is right for them or not. For many companies, the answer might be no, but they can't make that decision until they really understand what it is. So that's one part of it. Another piece of it is I originally wrote the book with marketers in mind. After all, I am a marketing professor. But I found that within the organization, marketing isn't the only functional area that can leverage these kinds of ideas. And in fact, sometimes there's resistance in marketing. Because marketing, in many cases, is very good at developing a snazzy ad campaign. But they really have to turn to the CIO or the CTO or the CFO in order to earn the ability to really deal with granular data. That's just not in the DNA of a lot of marketing people.
Sure.
So I want a broad audience, both within company and across companies.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, that's it. We really look forward to the launch of it. What's the date it's coming out?
The book will be published on October 11th. Customer Centricity, what it is, what it isn't, why it matters.
Excellent. Sounds good. Look forward to hearing more of the reviews in the market.